On today's episode of the podcast, we open with Buffalo advancing. Does death wait? Lamar, America's favorite quarterback? Probably not. But what's fair about the guy behind center for the Ravens? We're going to break down all of these games with Willie Colon, including the Eagles holding off the Rams, the KC controversy, and, of course, Washington doing unprecedented things with a rookie quarterback. That's right, historically unprecedented. We've got our pick for the national championship and why Ohio State has a chance to achieve unprecedented redemption. Love that word today. And life advice. Buffalo wins. They're headed to the AFC title game, and that's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to do really the open on that, and then we'll get to all the other games with Willie Colon, who's going to join us here. So Buffalo's taking on Kansas City again this week, and they're getting 1.5. That's the opening line at Arrowhead. We've been there before. We've seen this before. We've seen it in Buffalo as well. I don't know if it's because of Kansas City having this absurd regular season record, despite not being the Kansas City that we always expect. And look, I don't really want to pick against Kansas City, but I guess I'm doing it. On Monday, I'm doing it. Maybe it's a little Buffalo hangover in the excitement of their win, but I'm picking Buffalo again. And I don't love it. And we'll see if I change my mind. I'm usually pretty stubborn on this stuff, so I don't know that it will happen. I don't know. It's not like I'm going to Kansas City. I'm going to start walking around like it's happened in Louisiana, where you're just like, yeah, let's go. Let's see what happens here. But that's what I'm doing. That's the way I feel on Monday. So there's a bunch of stuff that I need to get to with this game, and that's why we're going to spend so much time on it. Because Baltimore, at one moment, I thought, okay, this game has turned around and the Ravens are going to win it. So when I say Buffalo hung on to win despite leading at halftime and pulling this out, there's a moment in this game where I'm like, okay, this is where Buffalo is absolutely hanging on. So Buffalo goes up. It was 21-10 at the half, but if you look at Baltimore scoring on possessions, there's 3 straight possessions, real possessions in there because there's a end of half thing there, but it's field goal, touchdown on 3 straight real possessions that make it 21-19. They fail the 2-point conversion on a batted pass. So they had a look, but it's 21-19. The touchdown drive for Baltimore at that time had to be probably the worst experience for Bills fans all season long. Because when we looked at this matchup, and whether it was the quarterback discussion, the coaching stuff, the skill guys, pass rush, whatever, like the accepted advantage, and we talked about this on Wednesday with Ted Wynn in the film breakdown part of it, the accepted advantage was that Baltimore's front, not their defensive front, their offensive line, and Henry and the Lamar dynamic, like that was going to be something that was going to be tough to hold up physically over 3 hours for Buffalo's lighter front. And that series, that possession, I should say, was the epitome of everything that everybody had talked about. All right. So during that drive, Baltimore went 80 yards in 7 plays in 3:44. 6 of the 7 plays were runs, and they were just absolutely gashing Buffalo's defense to the point where like Baltimore had offensive linemen that were looking for other people to hit, and they were knocking people out of the way. And you're like, okay, this is the part of the matchup that is problematic. You had Nance and Romo, like you can almost tell their tone during that drive was like, and I feel like all of these close games in NFL games, there's always this moment where you're like, this might be when they win it. Like this is when the game is changing in their favor. And I think too often, the team goes up 14-0. Everybody's like, oh, thanks for coming to the other team. And you're like, this is a battle. This is a physical and mental battle that plays out over 3 hours, and you have to stay in the game mentally. You have to show your toughness to get through those down times early on, which certainly Baltimore had. And we're going to get to all that stuff, the Andrews thing. But that had to be really scary for Buffalo fans. So luckily for Buffalo, they hit a 51-yard field goal to get a little momentum back. I think that field goal was important as we close on that as a reminder when Buffalo got the football back. That field goal made it 24-19. Baltimore has the fumble on the Andrews catch, which was just a disaster. Like I said, we'll get to his day here in a second. And at 24-19, Buffalo moves the ball all the way to the Baltimore 2-yard line. On 3rd and goal at the 2, Allen is stuffed. You're like, wait, that play that works all the time that everybody knew we were going to run, that ends up getting stuffed. And Allen has this weird Brett Favre moment where it looks like as his back is to the goal line, he's looking back at a skill player to his right who wasn't really even that close. It was like, is he about to pitch it? And there was a moment where he thought about it, and it looked like it would have been a disaster. And luckily he didn't. But now at 4th and goal, the Bills, McDermott have a choice to make. And in this movement, I don't know, because look, teams should have been going for it on 4th down far more, but then it bleeds into like, why are you doing it here? And I love that they kicked the field goal. I did. I understand going up to 2 scores and it's like, now the game is over. That's the way you do it. Like sometimes guys are just so aggressive in the thought process that you're assuming way too much. Like, what if you go for it? You just ran the Allen play. It doesn't work. Do you run it again and it doesn't work? Are they that ready, that hyped up for it? The most important possession of the entire season for a defensive front for Baltimore. Like they just stuffed it on 3rd down. Do you get cute? Do you give Allen a run play kind of decision where he can just get out to one side and decide what he wants to do, but then you're giving up the other half of the field? Like there's just so much that goes into the decision. And I think the part that's ignored far too often is what's wrong with going up 8 points? Even if they score the touchdown, they have to convert the 2. There's also some math in your favor, and it's probably more of an aberration on this season, but 2-point conversion historically is always around like 50%. This year it's in the 30s, like low 30s. I don't know that defenses have figured this out. One of the only things I could think of is everybody so aggressive now that you have teams who stink on offense in the red zone, meaning touchdown percentage. Because there's a lot of teams, it's like, wow, the math said this. It's like, yeah, but your touchdown percentage in the red zone is like 27th in the NFL. Why are you going for 2? You're not good at it. You're not good, dude. I wouldn't put Baltimore in that category, but I was just trying to figure out, like, maybe it's just random. Maybe it's completely random and it doesn't mean anything. Or does it mean that more teams that shouldn't be going for 2 are going for 2, and that's why it's dragging that number down? So, of course, the Bills go up the 8, and there's still a lot of time left. What I know you're asking Baltimore to do, if you go for it on 4th down and your stuff, you're like, okay, but they've got to go 97, 98 yards to score a game-winning touchdown. Well, the point is that touchdown would have been a game winner. And who knows what kind of clock management they're running and how much they're leaving on the clock there, right? Who knows? Like, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. So even with Baltimore going 88 yards, getting backed up on the holding penalty on the return, they score the touchdown. Lamar's terrific on the drive. Right? They line up for the 2-point conversion. They get the look they want. Andrews out to the right side. At one moment, it looks like he catches it. The announcers thought I thought he caught it. And then you see the ball just kind of dribble onto the snowy field. And you're like, this thing is over. And Mark Andrews, that's a tough one. That's a tough day. I think it's important to remember, though, that Buffalo is going to get the football back with 1:33 left after that, with 2 timeouts, and the fact that Bassett hit the 51-yard field goal going in that direction in the start of the 4th quarter. Again, it's an assumption. I think Buffalo probably finds a way with Allen, because remember, you're moving the football on 3rd and 4th down, so you're asking the defense, you've got to convert. You've got to stop all of these extra downs on that drive. I think Buffalo, with the timeouts and Allen and what Bassett just done, I think they probably would have gotten the game-winning field goal. But again, that's a massive assumption. I will listen to arguments that tell me I'm wrong. So what's fair with Lamar Jackson? Let's take a look at the stats. 18 to 25 yesterday, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, the 1 pick. The pick was terrible. He didn't see Rapp safety, I don't think. And they ended up getting a 3-and-out, and Buffalo punted. So the score taxation in that didn't necessarily happen. He had a 114 quarterback rating, not QBR. That's his 3rd highest in a playoff game of his career. Number 1 overall is Pittsburgh last week. Number 2 is Houston last season. Lamar ran it 6 times for 39 yards, kind of held in check for the most part. His 2nd lowest rushing total in a playoff game. The other was 34 yards against the Bills 4 years ago. So the Bills have done a good job containing that, even though we're talking about different personnel 4 years later. The interception was on 2nd and 11. Bad. But the fumble was much worse on the next possession because Von Miller runs it back to the Baltimore 24. That's a touchdown. It's 14-7. So now you're actually paying that score tax with this. So Lamar's going to win his 3rd MVP, it looks like, based on everybody's projection on the postseason voting. I've made the Harden comparison before with Lamar because I thought it was just so bad. earlier on. And I don't think it's the same thing. Now, clearly something was wrong if they had to change the entire offense and bring in new coaches. The personnel is a little bit better because Lamar was always kind of lacking in the skill guys as well. But the Harden thing that I'd always talked about, like when I watch Harden in a playoff game, I can just watch and be like, something is just wrong. Like when he gets into these games, and now he's getting older enough that my expectations aren't necessarily that high, but at least with Lamar, it's getting better. That maybe that isn't a fair comparison anymore. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, yeah, he wasn't great yesterday, but he wasn't terrible. And some of those stats prior to what he's put together the last couple of games, like the entire portfolio was bad. The wins losses things for quarterbacks can almost be. I know this sounds kind of stupid, but when quarterbacks are eliminated, it tends to be kind of like, what's wrong with this guy? Because it was happening to Allen last year when he was being like, Lamar would be brought up on a talk show and then it'd be like, yeah, but what about Josh Allen? You're like, seriously? You guys want to build a graphic and put those stats up side by side? Because Allen was 5 and 5, 5 wins, 5 losses in his playoff career before the 2 wins in this 24-25 season. But the numbers are incredible. He's now at a 23-4 touchdown split, throwing 7 more rushing touchdowns. The rating's over 100. Versus Lamar, who for his career is now a 10-7 touchdown interception split with only 3 rushing touchdowns and 84 rating. And now he's 3-5 in the playoffs. The Mahomes factor, I think, is destroying some of these quarterbacks, because normally it's like, hey, let's take turns at winning some Super Bowls here, or at least winning a conference championship. And Mahomes just isn't letting that happen. So you could look at Lamar and say, okay, well, Josh has got him twice now, and Mahomes last season. Allen's lost to Kansas City 3 times. So, what are we really talking about here? I think the best way to talk about it for Lamar is that it's getting better, but it's certainly not what you want, not from somebody who's about to win his 3rd MVP. And the fact that he's going to win the MVP against the other guy, the head-to-head stuff here, like, I understand all of it, but I thought it was a lot worse earlier on. And even with the mistakes yesterday, is there something to feel a little bit better about? Probably not on Monday. Maybe we'll do that in August. The Mark Andrews fumble and the 2-point drop. At first, it was discussed as something that, like, this is actually going to hurt Lamar. I think it hurts Lamar today, but does it help him for the more nuanced conversation about who he is or who he's becoming as a quarterback? Because even though Lamar had the earlier mistakes, the fumble's disastrous. And of course, the 2-point conversion causes you a chance at, maybe overtime and maybe pulling this thing out. So instead of just going, oh, he lost again, and we're talking about the 25 season, it's like, what's wrong? I don't think it's a what's wrong with this guy, because I do think it's getting better. And you have something very specific to point to from a teammate that had an awful game that led to Lamar taking an L and another one head-to-head against Josh Allen. So instead of being eliminated by Phillip Rivers in his first game, where I didn't think he was very good, and look, there's nothing wrong with being eliminated by Phillip Rivers, Tannehill's a little bit more problematic, that terrible Tennessee game Lamar had years ago. But now if it's Allen and Mahomes, is that really the worst thing? Final thought on the weekend. I feel terrible for Detroit fans. 15-2, that Vikings win, home field, indoors the rest of the way, Goff and everybody flying around. But we knew that the defense, it was going to be tough to win all of these games, win 3 straight to win a Super Bowl. How about just get there, right? If you're Detroit, you can still get a shirt. However, the NFC North, this dominant division, did it just have an SEC season? The NFC North outscored its division opponents by 8.7 points per game. The best a division did, again, versus non-division opponents, since the 1970 merger. 0-3 in the playoffs. At least Texas got a game. So the NFC North doesn't have the history of the SEC. I think we'd agree with that. The North had a better regular season, probably some nicer wins in there, perhaps. But a division that was just so dominant this year. And you can get into, well, okay, who are they playing on the other divisions? I always think of the Patriots, Matt Castle, 11-win season. It's like, how do they do it? It's like, well, look at who they played in the AFC and their NFC assignments, their division assignments for that year's schedule. Could that have something to do with it? But to have all three of these teams not win one playoff game after putting together that kind of resume during the regular season. And I think it has a little bit to do with the quarterbacks as well, maybe just like the SEC, because Goff was disappointing, Love was certainly disappointing, and Darnold had a nightmare day against the Rams. We're going to do more on the rest of the playoffs. We've got the Jaden conversation with Washington, Philadelphia, and we'll do that with Willie Colon. Perfect time to have Willie Colon on again from SNY and Breakfast Ball on Fox, gearing up for, some can say this is the best weekend of football. I love the conference championship game just because the idea that you're getting into the Super Bowl, I think we remember these games a little bit more. That's not really where the debate goes, but good morning to you, man.
Morning, brother. Did I see you after or before the New Year? I can't tell. I can't remember. Anyway, Happy New Year. Yeah, repeat. Happy New Year.
Good stuff. Let's start with Washington because this is a story. And I did a big open on Lamar and all that. We're going to get your thoughts on Baltimore and Buffalo anyway. But Mike Sando, who you know how much I like his work, checked in on his stuff this Monday morning, and he had this. All right. So if you think of quarterbacks that are rookies making to the conference championship game, Jaden's now the fifth to do it. And if you look at the combined special teams and defensive output from the other rookie QBs, there's a common theme here. Purdy in 22, combined defensive special teams ranking for the Niners that year, number one. Mark Sanchez in 2010, number 3 combined on that side of the football and the other two units. Flacco, 09, number 3. Ben Roethlisberger, rookie year 2004. Number 4, if you combine the defense and special teams of Washington, those units and their output for Jaden, they're 24th. So how many times can you say about a rookie quarterback, like it's not supposed to keep, like, hey, nice year, buddy, and then eliminated and let's see what they can build on. But like, what is possible? He is moving the walls of what's possible for a rookie quarterback. So just anywhere you want to go with what you've seen from him and that big win against Detroit.
Well, that's a hell of a stat. I think because you're right. I think if all the quarterbacks you just mentioned, I think some would just say they were kind of ride-alongs, right? Just because this team was so superior in different categories. I think watching him over the last couple of weeks, I'm just impressed with the kid. I mean, he doesn't seem like he's ever rattled. He's always prepared for the moment, yada, yada, yada. I mean, all the cliche stuff. I think what impressed me about Saturday was that the run game really came alive for him. Between him, Austin Eckler, and Brian Robinson, I mean, that's what I thought. If they weren't able to run the ball and he wasn't able to make plays with his legs, I thought Washington was going to be in trouble. And on top of that, I think the offensive line doesn't get enough credit. And Valley, I know, listen, Detroit had a lot of injuries. They weren't able to get to Jaden Daniels with their front four, so they blitzed a lot. But I thought his ability to spread them out and just really be deliberate and on time with the ball was just like, and on the road in Detroit, when the place is rocking, I was like, man, this kid got the marbles. And so I'm impressed with everything he's done thus far. I think what most impresses me is that he continues to be consistent, and that's the hardest thing to do in this league. Just be consistent. You can have those one-off games. You can maybe even go on a little bit of a hot streak, but to be consistent week after week going into the playoffs. And I was talking to my brother about this. I think one thing we talk when it comes to rookies, sometimes not having a resume of prior playoff experiences help you. Like, he only knows what he knows, right? He doesn't have that prior, like Josh Allen can go down, even Lamar Jackson can go down that playoff resume and be like, oh, I remember that game. I know what not to do now. Jaden Daniels doesn't have that, right? He's playing football as he feels like the best way he can play. And so I think that's helping him a lot. And I think, listen, I thought the Commanders' defensive line did a hell of a job of collapsing the pocket, really disrupting the timing of Jared Goff, especially with those intermediate throws. And I thought Washington, man, I thought they was like, hey, man, we're I know this is a Steeler line, but I think they really rolled into Detroit. Like, we're going to burn the boats. Either we're going to give them hell or we're going to die right here on this field. And I thought they fought their tails off.
All right, I'm glad you brought up the blitz because when it works, whether it's Spagnuolo at the end of a game or you're like, okay, like he did it again, and we'll get to some Kansas City, Houston stuff here as well. But we saw the blitz destroy Darnold in that Detroit, Minnesota matchup. And then we saw a carryover where the Rams probably a bit of a departure with Shula's defense of what they like to do. And it's like, well, we just watched this guy look like a shell of himself.
Straight up.
So maybe we do some of that. And so you figure with Detroit, and again, what do we always see when we're watching regular season Sunday games? Hey, 3rd and 7, it's a rookie quarterback. They're just sending pressure. He's not going to understand. He's going to miss somebody. And yet, here's Jaden, and it's like, nah, and I don't know if, like, clearly it's on him because it doesn't seem like there's an area of a field where he's afraid to throw it. It looks like they're asking him to hit. Like, no, let's throw the ball over there. Throw it. Like the McLaurin screen to the side, that never works that well.
No,
like whenever
I think it was 3
throw,
over 2. 3 over 2, he just dumped it off and it went to the crib. And I'm like, I was sitting there like, like the kid is on, like he was never rattled by any of that. He just knew where to go with the football right away, picked it up at the line, and ball was out and up, and there goes McLaurin.
So how does a blitz? This is stupid because I'm asking it kind of, but I remember like Rex when he showed up on the scene, and it was just like, yeah. And I remember we were on the air. I'm like, so you just blitz all the time now, and it just works. Because the blitz doesn't work against Jaden in the regular season. It didn't work in this game. I think the great ones are like, please, like Brady was a point, was like, please blitz me.
Right.
Please do it. Because you guys, like, I'm going to destroy you all day long. So where is that line of like when it's no longer as effective as the times where you're like, hey, after the game, like, how did it work? Oh, we were super aggressive. They couldn't figure any of this stuff out because we just saw Detroit do it to Darnold.
You know what's interesting? Like, I thought that was the one thing that really, I thought Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, that's like the blind spot that's why they lost the game. This is what I mean, because I feel like, listen, if you're not able to get to Jaden Daniels with your 4, fine. Then you blitz and you're still not able to get to him, but yet you're scoring at a high level. At some point, I feel like they should have changed the strategy and be like, all right, we can't stop this kid. So let's go to ball control mode, keep this kid on the bench, and let's get out this game with a W. That never happened. It was almost like we're going to try to outshoot them, and their defense didn't have enough to stop, and it was clear through all 4 quarters. And so I'm saying to myself, and Jared Goff, who you would think, I got a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and I got Jared Goff. My guy in the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, should win this shootout. And it wasn't happening. And there was no changing of philosophy in that moment. It was just like fire and brimstone, and it hurt him. And so that's why I sit back and Dan Campbell was emotional at the end of his presser and on and on and on. I'm like, bro, it's kind of getting old. Like the tears, I get that you're ultra passionate, but like you're playing a brand of football where obviously you have Jamar Gibbs, you got Montgomery back. Run the ball to the point where you can control the clock and figure out how you can have these long drives with Jaden Daniel, where you can cool him off at some point during the game. That never happened. And I honestly think they didn't think Commanders' defensive line was going to be as effective as they were during that game.
Okay, let's talk about that group because I do want to get to the aggressiveness there because I think that there's more to that conversation. But whenever I watch Washington, there'll be numerous guys in that front in particular where I'm like, I like that guy. Like, there's that guy again. There just seem to be all these dudes. And then when you look at the stats over the course of the season, there's nothing special, right?
No.
If you look at their scoring defense, you look at the yardage stuff, you look at the red zone defense against the touchdown and all that stuff. It feels like I like more dudes than the profile should allow me to.
I think that's fair. I mean, especially when I look at Zach Ertz, like you forget Brian Robinson was shot. You forget that he's playing football right now. Like his story in itself. You talk about Austin Eckler, who, Valley doesn't play a lot, but when he's on the field, he's impactful. Like there's guys who I'm a fan of their stories. And then when you watch them produce and they're actually winning games, it's like, man, this team, they're on a magic carpet ride. Like I remember watching the Commanders. They were 4-13 last year with Jacoby Brissett leading them up and down the field. And I'm like, this is the dark side of football. Like this team, they'll never be good. And here you get Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels in a new regime. And I'm looking at the Commanders. Like if you're a free agent right now, you're looking at Washington as a possible landing spot because of what this kid can do behind under center.
Yeah, I think there was even perhaps a bit of a push for, like, if you give Sam Howell a little bit more time. I mean, he was sacked 65 times last year. Yeah, whatever. He just it was tough. It was a tough year for Sam back there. But I think things are moving in the right direction. All right, so the aggressiveness thing with Dan Campbell, because I do feel like it's playing the results a bit, because it's hard to just change your identity, and everybody seemed to love it. They're at home. They run the reverse. But I would argue that down 38-28.
Yeah.
A couple minutes into the fourth quarter, and on first down at the Detroit 46, to trust Jamison Williams to make the right decision on that play is one of the single worst play calls of the entire year by any team.
Ryan,
and they're awesome. Campbell's awesome. Ben's awesome. But to tell a receiver,
yes.
And again, Jamison usually has a moment every game where I'm like,
what
the fuck are you doing? Like, if he and George Pickens got a house together, I would sign up for whatever TV show that was. And I wouldn't even be mad if I still were billed and forgetting to cancel the subscription, because I just realized I paid another $150 for the MLB package, which I wasn't aware of. So and we know this with receivers, like that becomes a moment where like, it is my time. The crazy thing is actually the throw. I can't believe the guy intercepted it. Like, I can't believe the recovery to throw it one-on-one. Like, normally, and then Jamison comes back, and they're like, what are you doing? And then he's yelling at the guy. Because you're putting him in a spot where it's like, hey, do we trust James Williams to make this?
But Ryan, isn't it as simple as if he's covered, don't throw it?
Yes, it's supposed to be.
It's that simple. Like, I didn't
see. But dudes want the stat.
But don't be dumb. But don't be dumb. Like, you're covered, bro. Like, I would tell you that in Sandlot football with nobody in it. Like, he's covered. What are you doing throwing the football? Like, you're like, it's.
I would say I thought I could make a play.
And I would say, sit down right next to me. Like, we can't trust you with the football in your hands. Obviously, you're a stud. I get it. But right now, you just blew the games. Like, it's dumb. He's covered.
So we are on the same. You cannot put him in that position.
No, I put him in that position. But I put it more on Jamison. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's a bad play. I trust the kid with the ball in his hand. I trust him to tuck it and get busy with it and get up the sideline or something. But to make a Herculean type throw when he's clearly covered, like, that's just dumb. It's just dumb football. Like, I looked at the play. I don't blame Ben Johnson on the play call. I don't blame him.
I do. I blame everybody.
I just blame the kid for throwing the football, knowing damn well. And you can see my old teammate, Antoine Randall, like, dude, like, he's covered. Like, I was trying to explain to the kid, like, he's covered. Why would you throw the ball? And he's like, you see him try to mummer or say something back. And he's like, bro, it's not hard. He's covered. Don't throw it. If he's uncovered, chuck it down there. ABC, bro. Simple as that.
Right. I could tell when Randall
looked at him like, you dumb shit.
Must have been right. That must have been if there's any chance of it not working, you probably can run it for, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at.
But even if he's tackled back there, you're still in the fight. The ball was turned over. That it was over after that.
Do you feel bad for Detroit?
I do. I ain't gonna lie. It's tough because Dan Quinn recruited me to Hofstra. And the assistant offensive line coach of the Commanders was my right guard with the Steelers. Obviously, I know Anton Randall because he played with me at the Steelers, and Will Gay's on this. So I have a lot of the homies on the Commanders side. But damn if I wasn't a fan of the Detroit Lions this year. Damn if I wasn't a fan of. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. If you're a young, chunky offensive lineman who feel like, man, all I would do is block. Like, watching Lions this year was like, nah, there's more to this. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can actually catch the football. I can actually run with it. There's actually plays designed for me. So I think they made offensive lineman play extremely fun to watch with everything else they have going on. So I was a fan of, I still am a fan of Dan Campbell and the Lions. I like them a lot. So, but overall, man, it sucked to see them go out like that because it felt like the city was like, oh, this is our year. Like, it was just all hands on deck. We're going to the Super Bowl. And now there aren't.
The Quinn relationship with his players it does feel very, very real. And maybe we overstate that at times. It feels like you played for a lot of guys that you were like, no, this is somebody that I really love and respect. What is it about Dan? Is there something specific about Dan that maybe is perceived as the same, but a little different with that player coach dynamic?
Well, I think for me, just knowing him, so I never, just for clarification, when I
Right.
got to Hofstra, he was gone. He was off to the league, but he recruited me to Hofstra, and then once I got there, he took off. But fast forward, man, having known him for some time now, I think guys just respect his ability to just be genuine, right? Just be genuine and honest and keeping it a buck. For the less lingoed out there, keeping it a buck means keeping it real, honest, and true. Okay.
Thanks.
But I also think he's just done a great job everywhere he's gone. Valid. You talk about his time in Seattle, even with his time even in Atlanta when he got fired. All the guys I've ever known that I know that played for him, they just say he's just a genuine guy. He just gives it to you straight. He never gives you no fluff. And you tell he cares about the man underneath the helmet rather than just the helmet itself. And that goes a long way with guys. I know it's cliche, but it goes a long way. When you're allowed to, push the business aside and say, hey, man, what's going on with you?
Yeah, he and Robinson, man. I was like, we still got some game left, but like let's. they were like,
even him.
right.
Watch old man Bobby Wagner. Like they hugged, like they were in a soap opera. Like they embraced chest to chest, hip to hip. I mean, the guys love him. And listen, there's nobody in the free world that thought the Commanders were going to be in this position. Nobody. I damn sure. I thought the Commanders were going to finish fourth in the division. Hands down.
They had the fourth lowest Vegas win total of any team in the NFL.
There.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
And like you can say like, hey, this is what a rookie, like this bright rookie, the special rookie QBs, they don't do this with the lack of support. Back to the original point of the other guys that we're talking about. Like that Flacco 09 year, that used to drive me insane.
Why?
Because it'd be like, how? Well, because the way he would be talked about, it was a very Matt Ryan based thing. I like Matt Ryan better than Flacco coming out of the draft. And then it was like, yeah, but Flacco's like winning all these games. Like he was 11 of 18 again. You dopes. Like that team is so good on defense.
They were damn good.
Right. And then he turned into Montana for a month in the playoffs. So I mean, he has one of the strangest careers of anybody. But there were so many Flacco years early on where I was like, yeah, that's cool. His record's incredible, but he's not being tasked with what some other people doing. And again, historically, what Daniels is doing right now for rookie quarterback to be playing this upcoming weekend, this is not done.
Well, I think
done.
I think you made a good point. It doesn't feel like he's being assisted, right? It seems like he's literally shouldering this franchise and putting his organization on his back on his way to an NFC championship. And when you talk about the matchup that's coming up, the fact that the last time when we kind of crowned him like, oh, this kid is special was against, this week 12 against Philly, right? Where he actually beat the Philadelphia Eagles in that second half of that game. I remember that 4th and 11. He was like, I'm tucking this thing, and I'm going to put this team on my back. Like to see him do that in a multitude of ways, man. I'm like, yeah, the kid is special.
I don't know if that game means anything because it's one of the weirdest games of the entire regular season.
5 turnovers
for what this matchup is, right? And then the fact that Hurts is knocked out of it. So let's start with the good stuff here with Philadelphia. They take out the Rams. They run the hell out of the ball. 34 for 285, 8 yards a carry. Saquon goes for 205. Hurts has the huge one to start the game. On that 44-yard touchdown, by the way, the left tackle, Milota, he pulls, and he is on the hole immediately. And they're so dominant on that play, he didn't even have anybody to block. He couldn't even – it was already over. It was already too late. Somebody kind of gets into the mix a little bit later, but go ahead.
No, I know you're 100% right, and I apologize for cutting you off. No, he broke through the line, and he gets about 15 yards up, and he has to turn around to find somebody to block because he was like, there's nobody out here. I think the Eagles right now, man, were you impressed? Let me start. Were you impressed by the win?
It's twofold. It is what's going on with Hurts, and holy shit, that they can do this against a Rams team that's turnaround is remarkable.
Correct.
You know, who they were the first 5 games, 1-4. The offensive line is a mess. I know the receivers. I think I always have a soft spot for Stafford because I felt like he was always this good. and Detroit's defense and special teams, if we want to stay on that theme, were terrible. And then all of a sudden, by product, like Stafford was just this massive disappointment. You're like, you know what? I'd like to believe that in the NFL there exist players that are actually spectacular, and it just doesn't work out for reasons that are outside of their control. But we're just not allowed to do that with quarterbacks. So Stafford having his Super Bowl moment and even some kind of redemption this year, I like that part of it. And look, they get back into this game, but I have this hurts part of me that is like, you want to talk excuses? This guy has great, legitimate excuses to not be sharp right now. Misses all of the time after the concussion in that Washington game. Wasn't great last week. Didn't matter. You've got the fact that he gets hurt in this game, right? The conditions on top of everything else. I think these are very legitimate excuses. But the fact is, this is 2 games from Hurts. And the standard for Philadelphia is winning a Super Bowl, Willie. So I think it's awesome what Philadelphia did yesterday and to hang on throughout all of it and all this personnel on defense, which I love. But yeah, is Hurts going to win against, I like him against Washington, but is he going to beat Allen or Mahomes? And that's where the conversation turns because of who they've been the last few years. So I actually just answered maybe your question.
Yeah, you did. I think right now, I looked at it from this fold. I mean, he was sacked 4 times in the first half, and overall they gave up 7 sacks. And I thought the offensive line they would have did a better job pass protect. I just did. I knew they were going to run the ball extremely well because they did early in the year. So I know they was going to be able to run the ball on the Rams. I wasn't worried about that. But I just suspected another gear, and I feel like I didn't see it. I thought I was like, they were just a better team up front running the ball, and they was able to get away with it. But even I was more impressed with Stafford. I mean, 1:48, and he goes on a 10-play drive, and I'm like, holy shit. This kid, I mean, he had the building in knots. Like, he had Eagle fans like, oh, man, this is, we're about to, our heads are about to explode. We can't believe we're about to lose this game. And I was so frustrated with the Rams offensive line, in particular Kevin Dodson in that center. I'm like, you've been double teaming Jalen Carter the whole game and being able to neutralize him. The one time you go one-on-one, he wreaks havoc. And it was only miscommunication. I think the one pressure they gave up, the center turns left thinking he has inside help. Dodson's sitting there and oversets, and Jalen Carter, like, he's a stud. Like, he was a stud. And he just gets busy, pressures, and it messes up the down. So I was more frustrated with the Rams offensive line in that minute more than ever because there was just some mental errors that were just unnecessary. The Rams could have stole that win if they would have Stafford some more time.
Where is Jalen Carter on disruptive forces on a defensive line for you? Like, how many dudes are ahead of him now?
Ooh.
And it's a little different because he's going to be playing inside so much compared to, just the pure edge guys that get all the headlines.
Right. I think he's up there with Dexter Lawrence, 100%. Like, Dexter Lawrence I think is just all dog. I mean, like, I've seen that man, like, just cave in offensive lines. I think Jalen Carter's just different because I think his ability to be more shifty at the point of attack. Man, I think he is, for a guy his size and his hip mobility, is exceptional. And I think between the ears, I think he's a mass murderer. Like, you tell, he plays to hurt people. Like, he plays to get after people's asses. And I think that's something you're born with. You can't teach that. So you put his physical abilities along with his mindset, he is who he is right now. I think the arrow's only going to go up for him.
Do we have more on Hurts? Do we have more on what's good? Because again, I don't know how critical I feel like I can be of him, considering everything leading up and the fact that he got hurt in this game.
He did get hurt.
But then there was a throw that he throws to the left sideline into the end zone to Brown, where he just doesn't see Witherspoon underneath it, and he got away with it. Right. It ended up just being an incompletion. And I don't mind throwing it to AJ 1-on-1 against the defensive back. I mean, the guy's a beast. But the throw, not to say that like quarterbacks don't lose a safety every now and then, but considering that was a throw where I went, what? How did he not see?
I think that was him just
at all.
Yeah, I think that's him, to your point, trusting AJ, then going with it with a ball that he shouldn't have thrown. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, man, I got AJ. If this is bad, he can make it good. And he just, then you tell, it's just a weird. And I also don't know, like, I think his knee, once they braced it up, like, I thought, and then maybe I'm wrong with this. After he hurt his knee, they had one play where he, like, rolled out to his left and he kind of got sacked. And I'm saying to myself, if like you're Kellen Moore and you're Nick Sirianni, you go to Hurts and like, all right, obviously you're jacked up, dude. Tell me what you can do and what you can't do so we can get you to next week rather than put you in harm's way. And I thought it was like a 2nd and 7. And I think it was like in 2nd and 7, they rolled him out left, man. And he kind of slid down and took the sack. But I thought they didn't do a good enough job of really protecting him late in that game when he was clearly dinged up and hobbled. I thought they could have did more of just kind of taking some things off his plate where he could have got out of the game a lot more safer.
Matchup wise, do you think Washington has a chance here?
How can you not? I didn't think they had a chance against Detroit. I thought Detroit was going to dog walk them. I did. I thought I was like, Detroit's healthy. They're rested. I mean, they got it. Montgomery's back. You know what I mean? I thought Detroit was, and like I said, I have personal relations with the Commanders. I know a lot of those guys. I was secretly cheering for those guys. I just thought Detroit was a juggernaut. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are a juggernaut. I don't. I think they're a very good team. They got a very good defense. Jalen Hurts, when healthy, is a badass quarterback. Obviously, you got Saquon in the offensive line. I didn't think that offensive line would give up that many sacks. I understand that the Rams are a young, vibrant defense, but they had Jared Verse looking like Tamba Ali out there. You know what I mean? I was just like, what the hell? Against Mailata, who I think is a damn good tackle. So yeah, I think the Eagles can get it. Are they going to win? I don't know, but I think it could be a lot closer game than what people expect.
I don't know if all the sacks are on that group, though. And maybe it's just me giving them the benefit of the doubt because it's the best offensive line in the NFL. But I think between Hurts' reluctance and the tendency to hang on to the football a little bit longer and the knee injury in this game. So I wanted to make sure I didn't sound like I was being critical. I just haven't liked what I've seen for 2 weeks from them. But there are very valid reasons why that might be happening. We still have 2 other games to get to here. So I've enjoyed this so much, but let's go through it. Okay, Kansas City beats Houston, and then we'll close on Buffalo-Baltimore, right?
Yep.
I have a little number for you here. The past 2 years, Kansas City opponents have been flagged for 48 penalties in the fourth quarter and overtime of 1-score games. So to repeat that, go the last 2 years, the other team Kansas City's playing against, in 1-score games of fourth quarter overtime situations, that team has been flagged 48 times. Do you want to guess how many times Kansas City has been flagged?
Under 10.
47.
Oh, wow.
See what's happened? Do you see what's happened?
I bit the apple. I bit the apple.
Everybody's biting the apple right now.
Apple,
and look, as much as I love Mahomes, that shit was gross this weekend, man.
There's no flopping in football, Ryan. There's no flopping. Like
the flop on the sideline.
Oh my God!
If I had a kid who had a poster, we may take it down for a week.
When the flop on that sideline, I had my wife made some Rotel dip, and I had it in my lap with a couple of chips, and it was so egregious.
No, it's good with that chili.
Right. And I literally it fell on the floor because I couldn't believe the acting job that came along with it. It was outstanding. I'm like, get this man an Oscar. Give to bait the hit, slow down, and then throw his hands up like if he got hit by a shopping cart in the back. I was like, oh, he's playing with people's emotions today. He chose violence because for me, if that's going to be the game, I'm gonna make it worth it. I'm gonna do something dirty. That's just my mindset. Oh, you want to act today? We gonna act. I'm gonna make sure you get your award.
I would not have a problem with a defensive player just destroying one of these quarterbacks.
No question.
Next time they flirt with this sideline shit, okay?
100%.
And I understand what has happened and all the hand-wringing about this isn't the football I grew up with. Ratings would tell you nobody cares.
No,
nobody cares
enough
enough
be able to adjust, bro.
To do something else.
Right.
The quarterback flags that are excessive, it's done that way for a reason. Now, on the first one, I can at least understand because
the Will Anderson one?
Yeah, when you see the official that's throwing the flag on that, he's reacting to the angle of the drive and then Mahomes going down. Look,
But Ryan, what's the point of replay then? What's the point of replay? Like that hit propelled the Chiefs on to score that drive.
Right. It was huge
so
flag.
like my point is, what's the point of replay if you can't say, you know what, This it looks bang bang. I understand the referees are it's tough for them in that moment. But what's the point of replay if we can't go back to replay and say no? That was just a bang bang. There was never no helmet to helmet connection there. What's the point of it?
I agree. I'm just at least justifying why I could understand the initial flag on it because of the angle and what he thought that he saw. And I think this happens a lot with officiating. And I would always wonder whether it's football or basketball. Like I'm thinking about this. There was a Sixers game this year, right? And Jenna Schroeder was officiating from the baseline, and there was already getting a little hot. And Drummond had a play where it looked like he pushed the player down to the ground, and Drummond ends up getting ejected. And then they bring him back in, which is once they overturned it because they knew that it was wrong. And she basically was making the call on something that was like she didn't know why something had happened, but the end result was that somebody was on the ground. And I wonder if officials like feel like over time you're better off going with that, even if you didn't see the first part of it, because more often than not that you're going to be right. And look, that game ended up being weird and B get ejected the whole thing. He deserved to be ejected in that one.
Right.
I think what happens with some of these quarterback hits is if I think what could have happened, then I'll likely be right. Now, look, on the second one, you're asking defensive players to do something that's impossible now. It's a bit like Baker has figured this out too. Like Baker will go down in a way where there's going to be physical contact. And yet now everyone's conditioned to think, I can't believe the quarterback was touched. You're like, dude, the quarterback was standing up 2 seconds ago.
And they just dropped straight to the ground. Yeah.
Right. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Kyler Murray had a play on the sideline this year where he's veering towards the sideline. The defensive players give up because they're afraid of even breathing on the
well,
dudes.
that's what happened on the flop.
Right.
Like, do you see the guys kind of, they start walking, and then you see Mahomes kind of pity-pat to the sideline, and then the one bump he gets is like the whole, like the dramatics behind it. And I'm like, I'm down on dip, and I want to fight Mahomes. Like, it's just, it was insane. And I'm saying to myself, too, on this, from this aspect, like, and I thought Aikman said it best on the call. He goes, listen, as a guy who played in a tough era where quarterbacks usually get slammed on the ground, like, I have empathy for these defensive guys. What do you want them to do? They're running full speed to cover the ball, and you have a guy baiting them, and then once they get there, just a tap on the shoulder, it looks like something, and a flag's being called. And so it's insane, man. I don't know. The NFL clearly has a problem because flopping has entered the NFL.
Yeah, and the sideline stuff is the defensive player has no choice because now you'll see flags where a player was in bounds but veering out of bounds. So then the hit carries itself out of bounds. But there's also been times where I've been pleasantly surprised. Like there was a hit, I think it was the Lamar hit.
Yeah.
Where
Ed
they were
Oliver.
like, they kind of used common sense. You know what was the funniest thing about that was one of the offensive linemen for the Ravens came over to shove the Bills player, and usually the defensive player gets killed because he's not prepared for it, and the offensive lineman's kind of allowed to do it, and everybody just kind of understands it's the way business is done. I think Oliver got up and like jacked up the old lineman, like he was ready.
It was the wrong goon to the party. Right. Not everybody's about that.
You don't see
life.
that very often. Having said all these things, the Kansas City thing that plays out on social media is bullshit. They had pass interferences that were not called in their favor last year on 2 games that I can think of. They had the offsides thing on the Tony play. Like, it's just the numbers do not back it up. But the problem is, Saturday was so gross. But ultimately, like, do you think that's why Kansas City won?
No, listen, I'm going to be honest. I thought they couldn't protect C.J. Stroud. I thought he took a couple back sacks. Dalton Schultz, by the way, was horrible in blocking. I remember the one sack he gave up. They actually triple teamed Karlaftis, and Schultz just kind of just laid like soft little pretty hand. I'm like, dude, you're in a playoff game. You got to sell out for CJ. At one point they had 2 guys on routes, and it was a max protection because they were just trying to keep him upright. And so I thought they just did a horrible job protecting him. I thought he took a couple bad sacks. But with all that said, if the Tech, I can't say his name, the Texans kicker. I mean, they had a chance to tie that game. It's 13-13. It's a botched kick. So the Texans I thought they fought. They were scrappy. I thought Mixon had a good game. I thought up front they just had a really, really bad game. And Stroud, I thought it was tough. I thought he tried to stay in there and deliver the football. It just wasn't working for him.
All right, let's talk main event here because I opened with it, so we'll close with it with us. Buffalo gets past Baltimore. Your first thing, you've got 10-minute monologue. Well, I don't want you to go 10 minutes, but we already did that. But if the number one thing you have to get off your chest observation of this game.
I don't think it's all Lamar's fault. I think there's a procession because of the 2 turnovers. I know he took the interception, the fumble, and then he took that bad sack, I think, on the 10-yard line or something like that. I don't think it's all. I blame Todd Monken for a lot of it. I think it was at one point, I think it was like 21-10, and they stopped running the footballs. Like Derrick Henry only had like 73 or 78 yards in the first half.
Yeah, 21 yards at the half. Yeah, 21.
Yeah, it was like, and I'm saying to myself, like, why go away? What was the panic? It reminded me last year of what happened in Kansas City when Kansas City started playing bully ball with them, and they got behind. There was this kind of this instinct, like, we got to start throwing the ball. Like, you don't have any receivers. Zay Flowers is out. Bateman got hurt. So now you got Andrews and Likely doing go routes and seam posts. I'm like, dude, run the damn football. Like, there's no reason. And Buffalo, like, in my mindset, I left the game going into that game like, all right, you got 2 quarterbacks that they're going to have to bring their cape to the field. Josh Allen didn't need his cape. Lamar Jackson obviously forgot his cape. Buffalo just played an extremely clean game of football. And then they didn't do a great job rushing the passer. Like, their front 4 didn't get there. They covered fairly well. I mean, they had the blitz because they weren't able to get after Lamar. But I thought overall, the first drive from the Baltimore Ravens, I was like, uh-oh, here comes the Ravens. And then Buffalo, scored right back. And I'm like, okay, we got something here. And then it was just kind of like, ugh, for the rest of the game. And I thought Buffalo just had to be Buffalo. They didn't have to be special.
The 2 mistakes from Lamar are massive. The Andrews one, I mean, you just keep chalking up the turnovers, and the other team is going to turn the football over. It's going to be tough to beat anybody that's good. You're just like, it's almost remarkable they got back in a situation to even tie this football game up. Would you say there was a moment late in the game where Buffalo's up, and I'm like, do you guys think you're up like 14? Do you think there's 4 minutes left in the game? Because at 12 minutes, I'm like, are you guys more worried about the clock here? Because I thought at that point, I was like, it's almost as if they were so afraid to make a mistake. They didn't want to put themselves in any position to lead to one. And then I think it just felt like they were really conservative with Allen in the way this offense is developed and what it's turned into, where there's just a lot of stuff you have to worry about, even if the number one targeted receiver isn't a huge threat. It's Shakir, but it's not like, oh my God, like, how are we going to stop this beast? We have to double team him the entire time. It doesn't matter. It'll be forgotten by the end of the day.
But that's the problem.
Fans will remember. Would you agree with that though?
I think you're 100% right. The game is forgettable, right? Because the lack of production for Baltimore and being as efficient as we thought they could be. But I think overall, the unsung heroes of that game is James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. Like, all 3 of those guys were money good. And Allen, for me, I thought he just played a very clean game. There was a moment when I think it was like Torres going into the end zone. Metabikwe had him like wrapped around his arms. It looked like he was about to ladder it. And I was like, oh no, don't. And I was just like, don't be that guy. Like, I'm glad he didn't do what I thought everybody thought he was about to lateral his ball and try to get a quick score. But he was safe. I thought it was just all 3 phases they played really well, man. And the team that didn't turn over the ball won. And I know it's very elementary to say, but you got to give Josh Allen credit. Like, he seems like he matured. He matured where he's like, listen, I got this run game. I got this offensive line. I'm going to take care of the football. We're just going to be efficient. And then they were. And they got out the building with the dub.
Who would you rather have, quarterback, Allen or Lamar?
For the next 5 years?
Yeah.
I think for me right now, it's Josh Allen. I thought Lamar, like, even that bad throw, that one pick, like, everybody wanted to, like, well, Milano pressured him. It's just a bad throw. It was man coverage. You knew what to do. It's like he just had to be a little more poised. Give us some time, throw it up there, and deliver a good ball. But he threw a stupid pick.
The fair catch picks always look pretty bad. Like, I don't have a ton of sympathy on those.
But they tried to be like, oh, Milano pressured him. Milano didn't just swim the running back and was just there.
Hey, I love Milano, but yeah, Romo was kind of married to that take because I think he saw it live, and then when we came back to the replay, he was just kind of sitting in the hole.
Yeah.
You know what I love what they did with Milano, and I think Romo did a really good job of explaining this, is how they would kind of shift their front, and Milano would start, if you're on offense, he'd be on your left side.
Okay.
and then he would kind of trick you into thinking he wasn't in the play, but all he really was doing was spying you to the right side. So it was as if they wanted Lamar to think he had a running lane there, and then it's still up to Milano to make the tackle, which, again, I don't like anybody's chances against Lamar in space. But this is a real thing. Like, they've done a good job against Lamar in the rushing attack. Like, it's a threat, so it exists, but it wasn't like it was something that was a problem for Buffalo's defense.
No, I thought collectively the Buffalo's defense played a sound game. I thought Ed Oliver gave him hell. I thought Epineza did a great job of really controlling the edge. And I thought, listen, their secondary, DeMar Hamlin had 8 tackles. I was surprised by that. I was just like, oh.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
He was all over. I was like, what is DeMar Hamlin's? I know that he had that one ball that went over his head that Bateman ended up called, but overall, he had a pretty good game. And then Bernard, when he was able to punch out that ball on Andrews, I was just like, all right, this is wild right now. This feels wild.
Is Mac Hollins' job to get one catch?
That's somebody I would fight.
Right. I didn't know if you were going to like
100%.
Mac Hollins or hate Mac Hollins. I think
Hollins.
I know.
Yeah.
What?
Mac Hollins gives me like, oh man, like I would fight. I would absolutely try to dog walk Mac Hollins. Like he the whole barefoot thing to the stadium, the whole bravado, like he's this caveman. Like, homie, you ain't built like that. I know killers. You ain't a killer, man. I play with killers. You ain't him. I mean, you're just a light-skinned dude who just loves the wilderness. I get it, man. But he gives me big ick, man. I would fight. Mac Hollins would be like old Steeler Ravens. If he was on the Ravens, like it would be like his number. It would be a hit on his number. Like we got to take care of this guy.
Okay, perfect segue. We did this with you back in the day. I may bring it back for select athletes. The athletes could be a loose term.
On guard. I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.
That sound means we're bringing it back. Could you beat up this teammate with our guests?
Okay.
So we're going back to the 2009 Steelers.
Okay.
Let's start with Heath Miller.
Oh, man. He's one of my favorite teammates of all time. Heath would probably give me hell. Yeah. Heath, like, you know how in UFC, I probably can get Heath, but, like, you have to really hurt Heath to stop Heath. Like, he's going to give you, like, he's not the guy that's not going to, like, you know how in UFC they put the guy in the chokehold and they make him to tap? You have to put Heath to sleep. He's not going to tap. Like, he's that type of guy.
Okay. I promised that race was not part of the theme here, but Brett Kiesel.
Could I take Diesel? Yeah, I could take Diesel. Yeah. Diesel tough. He seems like a biter. But Diesel, I love Diesel, but I could take Diesel.
All right. Let's mix it up here. Dick LeBeau.
Yo, Dick LeBeau is like insanely strong. Like he knows Tai Chi. He was like Dick LeBeau gives me like old man prison strength. Like he used to do push-ups. He could like rip out like 50 push-ups out of nowhere. He was always doing push-ups. Like the offense would be going on the field and we kind of going through our thing and we look off and Dick LeBeau would be like off 2 fields over, just ripping out a set of 20, just keeping it tight. So he'll give me, he was sneaky. Old man Dickie LeBeau was something else in his day. He was a hell of a cornerback.
I did not expect that answer because sometimes when I mix it up on the contestants, they'll be like, "Come on, dude! Like that's ridiculous." Tai Chi, that's a balance thing. So who knows? Yeah, a lot of balance in there.
I may have to get work.
So let's end it with the headliner then, James Harrison.
Debo, man. So quick story. My second and third year. Debo's on the team, and there was a bar in the South Side called S Bar, and I think it was an off season. We were all getting to drinking, and Ben pulled a trick on me where he was like, "Man, we're gonna go shot for shot," but he had told the bartender, a shot of tequila. He had told the bartender, like, "Man, make my shots all water, give him all tequila." So I did about like 20 shots, and I am blasted. So Debo's in there. And Debo at the time, James Harrison, he drank, but he didn't really drink, whatever. So I go in the bathroom and I'm sitting in there and I'm just like, he's just charging me up. He's like, hell yeah. We're just having like kind of a program moment, like Ladder Man. We're just screaming and laughing and stuff. And I was like, you want some Debo? He's like, hell yeah. And we're locking up. We're locking up in this small ass bathroom. And he's ripping my shirt, I'm ripping his shirt. We're just kind of just wrestling. Bro, no bullshit you, man. I went to like grab his back, and I felt like his muscles bulging in my hand. And at that point, I was like, man, it's not human. I've never felt in another man's back where you can feel the bulging muscles in the palm of your hand. He was just like, it was insane. And he was just like, all right. And then we end up just having one of them drunk nights. But Debo's honestly the strongest human being I've ever seen in my life. By far.
Sounds like a no.
I mean, he's another one like I couldn't beat him with my hands. I would have to bring something to the party. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think you were very fair. You might have been a little self-deprecating in this. But I think with the James Harrison one, though, all of us from the outside would just be like, I guess that's just a loss all the way across. I did this with Teddy Bruschi once. Like, I expected Teddy to not pick anybody, right? Because it's just Teddy. Like, I did not expect Teddy
Captain America.
Right, that anybody would get him. And then when you name that one dude where you're surprised because we don't know. And then they'll be like, no, actually, like, I mean, it was some random like defensive lineman in the rotation that I had named. And he was like, no, he goes, that guy would kill me. And I was like,
because there's some people that you spend intimate time with. And so you have those moments, there's those kind of those peaks in the window. You're like, oh, this guy's different. Like, this just isn't football stuff. This guy's wired different. Like,
the great thing with you is I can do this with you multiple times, so we'll do it again next time. We'll pick some guys from the Jets. Willie, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy your snowstorm. Enjoy your chili.
Oh, man.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate you, brother.
Ohio State, Notre Dame for a national championship tonight. Like everybody, all the hours, all the tape, lifting all those weights. This is why we do it. Watch a national championship that I wonder, is this less popular based on the brands and the fan bases? Is this less popular than a Georgia-Alabama game? Is this Mets-Yankees Subway Series? I had a tough time with that, but that might be my own thing. For Ohio State, Notre Dame. Maybe. I don't know. But what we do have on the table for Ohio State is an unprecedented chance at redemption. Now, a year ago, after Day had lost to Michigan again for the third straight time. Now, when he had lost to Michigan, they were ranked 5th, 3rd, and 3rd. We'll get to this year's loss. When they lost the third straight time, that's just not going to cut it, right? It's not how this rivalry goes. You keep losing this game, you're supposed to be fired. And the parallel that I made essentially was that, but remember when Michigan fans were doing the exact same thing with Harbaugh? Maybe it wasn't Michigan fans. I think the loudest voices were national media members that just resented the attention, right? Harbaugh shows up on the scene. It's going to be different. He's going to demand that attention. I think he actually tapered off on that a little bit. Remember, they had to like rework the contract, but I always felt like, look, if Michigan's happy with him and he's still recruiting and he keeps losing to Ohio State, if you look at this historically, like how different is it than everything that had happened? Because Michigan beat Ohio State in 2011, and then they lost in 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And the result of this game has almost everything to do with your approval rating among the fan base. So it's like, well, he's not beating Ohio State. And, they had flirted with a playoff appearance, I think, a couple times during that Harbaugh run. But since they were losing to Ohio State, it was like, this isn't going to cut it. It's like, well, actually, weren't really beating him before he got there either in 2015. So what? Like, okay, I know you get real bummed out about it, but are you sure you're going to do better? If Harbaugh is still invested into it, if the boosters are okay with it, if the administration is okay with it, are you really sure? Because, they had that disastrous COVID season, but for the most part, they were in the mix, at least enough for me to think, I don't really know that you need to make that change. And despite Day's struggles against Michigan, the third straight loss last year, it's like, yeah, but, Ohio State kind of starts every year in position to at least, there's disappointing years, but they at least start from a place where you figure, and granted, it's a little bit different with the Big Ten expansion, but certainly over the other years before all these other teams showed up from the West Coast, like their path to playoff contention is almost like automatic depending on what happens with that last game. So are you sure you really want to do this, Ohio State fans? Because Day has lost 3 straight. Well, when they lost the 4th straight to an unranked Michigan team that couldn't complete a forward pass, the answer was unequivocally yes. I mean, I liked the segment last year. This year I was after that loss. I was like, okay. Reasonable Ohio State people. Brian Windhorst. We love Windhorst. Big Ohio State fan. Listen to his podcast all the time. He was like, yeah, all right. It might be time. And now Ohio State sits hours away from a chance of winning a national championship, which didn't seem like, well, you can't say it seemed impossible because with the playoff expansion, it's like, no, it kind of is possible. And that's why it's unprecedented, because any other team that had lost that game is not in the 14 playoff, and it's just over. And you get to hang around Columbus, not playing in the Big Ten championship game, stewing on 4 straight Michigan losses, and maybe Day doesn't even survive. But the reason I look at tonight as a chance at unprecedented redemption is because there was no system that would ever even allow it. And again, this is not a complaint about the system. I've already done it too many times. I don't know if I can make a pact with you that I'm just not going to do it anymore, because I think we know come August I'll get warmed up again and have a few minutes in me. But to win a title, which again, I'm picking Ohio State because I don't know how you pick against them right now. You want to talk about the Will Howard game that's supposed to happen? The last time it happened was Michigan. Look at his numbers in the playoffs. This thing is scary. And you could say Texas was in it, and they were in it. I mean, they were lining up for a game-tying touchdown. But the biggest part of Ohio State's struggles offensively was their own fault. The penalties and getting backed up, those 4 straight possessions, which you talked about the night after the Texas win with Van. So this will be an all-time, like, full circle moment, recovery for whatever you want to talk about. Redemption, right? That's probably the right word. Redemption in a way, if Ohio State pulls this off, that we've never seen before, because no one's ever been allowed to have this kind of second chance. And I would think a national championship would be enough to get over what happened in Columbus a month ago. But, it's going to be like, sweet sweatshirt. Is that the year you lost to Michigan when they were unranked? And now for the official plays for the national championship. The line is still Ohio State minus 8.5 on FanDuel right now. And what I first want to do is I have something I'm going to do, and then we're going to do the official 4-leg. We hit the 4-leg Ohio State, Texas. That's G. Scott special. We'll get to him in a second here. What I like to do is if I could look for 2 legs here where I get Ohio State in a manageable spread with something I think would happen if I'm picking Ohio State, then I look for those things. So Ohio State minus 2.5, Jeremiah Smith, anytime touchdown scorer, is paying out at plus 116. So again, you could just play Ohio State, the straight number at minus 8.5. Who knows? Maybe they stomp them tonight. And I don't blame anybody for picking Notre Dame. It just momentum-wise of the 2 teams, looking at it all, it's just kind of hard to pick them unless, you're just trying to zag every now and then, which I am certainly a fan of. But at least you're down to a much more manageable spread again for Ohio State. And again, even though Smith was shut out against Texas, you understand the thinking with that. All right, if we're building this out to 4 legs with a bigger payout, though, let's get exciting. All right, so Riley Leonard, plus 25 yards. That is 25 more yards, plus 235. Now, G. Scott, we've been doing the G. Scott 25 or more yards. If I did that, that is plus 704. Tight ends can be a little tricky. Why do you like G. Scott so much? I don't know. Every time I watch him, I just always feel like, what if we go G. Scott 2 or more receptions? So that way, if we get screwed in the yardage thing, they're going to look to him at least once, maybe twice, a developing part of this Ohio State offense. I think that's the move. So let's look at it. Jeremiah Smith, anytime touchdown scorer. Ohio State, minus 2.5. Riley Leonard, 25 or more rushing yards. G. Scott, 2 or more receptions. Paying out right now on FanDuel at plus 443.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice. The email address is lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. We've got Ceruti. We've got Kyle. Anything to report? Any updates on your worlds?
Nothing yet. I don't think the new rankings are out, so I have no Johnny's information to give you. But we should be seeing their name in that top 25. But that's all I got.
Yeah. No, nice performance against the Hall this weekend. People a little down on the Big East, though. People down on me tweeting about the Big East and the Johnnies during football games. Not quite sure how people don't understand.
That's why you do
what
it,
do you
correct?
No, but why can't I have the Johnnies on another TV, especially when there's only one football game on? And why can't I have an opinion about the Johnnies? Like, is the NFL window not dominant enough that we can't fucking have a thought about anything else? I guess I just don't understand football's on, reply guy.
Right. You're also doing something while football's on too, replying to me about I should be watching football. It's
well
paradox.
said. Yeah. Smells like Updog in here. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Let's see. Got one that feels pretty serious. So let's start with that one. And then another one that came in. As soon as I started, halfway through reading it, I checked what time it was sent. I was like, okay, this usually all mysteries, like the aggressiveness of the email, be like, what? Oh, we get a 2:01 a.m. here. Okay. All right. 5'7", 170. This one came in during the day. So very straightforward, very adult email here. NBA comp late stage Damon Jones after the Springs and the jump shot went. Damon Jones was arguably the most confident above his abilities of any player, but he had some nice stretches there with LeBron playing off the ball. LeBron, you know, a lot of those guys made all of them better. All right, probably better in skills competition than actually playing the game of basketball. Long time, every episode listener, Ryan. I've been tuned in since I had to download the Scott Van Pelt Show and the NBA Today podcast from the ESPN Pod Center and load them onto my iPod Touch. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. My wife and I have a 2.5-year-old son and now a 5-month-old daughter. My son recently attended a birthday party at a local jungle gym type establishment, the kind with blow-up houses, climbing apparatuses, where everything is intended to be completely kid-proof. Living up to his father's late-stage Damon Jones' underwhelming athletic profile, my son managed to flail into a set of unexpectedly exposed screws, resulting in an alarming amount of blood, an emergency room visit, a $10,000 settlement. $10,000 settlement. Okay, so 10,000 is a rounded number to make the on-air verdict easier to follow. I'll do the math afterwards if needed. Well, thank you. My question is, what is the right way to equitably distribute the money? The kids have college savings funds, and the obvious answer would be just to put $10K in my son's college fund and let it turn into good money in 16 years. The problem is I get a little squeamish thinking about giving my son what might compound a $50,000 leg up over his sister. Some other facts to consider. My son will have no long-term physical damage or scarring unless he loses his hair.
I love how that was a factor.
It's not that big of a
He's
deal.
still dateable, so I really don't know how much.
I'm not sure you were supposed to laugh that hard, but I'm going to let it happen.
All right. I just love that's a
point.
factor. He's like, I mean, he's not really going to carry this for a while. Like, does he really need the full 10? If he was maimed, I guess. I don't know.
This guy is like really like, I wonder what this guy does for a living because it's, it's like
thorough.
He does home appraisals.
He's very thorough.
Right. Yeah. Fact number 2, given he is 2.5, he will have no conscious memory of this. Fair. I was almost hit by a car in Nantucket once. I was pretty young. And a woman ran out the street and gave me a peanut butter cookie. But I have a mutant memory. So, yeah. I don't think your kid's going to freak out. Anyway, fortunately, my wife and I have decent insurance and most of this was covered. Would splitting the money up between my kids be the right thing to do? Is my daughter entitled to any of this money, even though my son is the one who paid the iron price? Are my wife and I entitled to any of this money? We do all right, but we have far more than $10,000 in debt between a house, a car, childcare, and inescapable post-holiday credit card debt. How should we divide this money? What's fair for everyone? Thanks, you guys. Looking forward to the next 15 years of listenership. 15 years. Whoa. Like, it reminds me. All right. Well, this guy has quite the conscience on him because I can think of I tell you, wouldn't see a fucking dime of that money if he were 2.5? Me, Kyle. How about your parents?
No, dude, no. My mom would finally get to go to Aruba. Yeah, stuff like I just wouldn't know.
Happy little island.
I just wouldn't know that it
Happy
ever happened.
settlement mom.
Stumbled into some money. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Ceruti, I mean, I don't want to put your parents on blast here. I think Joe would probably put a little something aside for young Steve.
He would. I don't know about all of it, but I think this feels like a pretty easy thing. Like, can't you just split it like in thirds? Like, you take 33%, you give the kid, the son 33, or maybe you want to give him a little more, maybe do 40.
Give him 34.
30.
Take a chunk out of the Amex. Yeah, just do.
Everybody kind of wins
right.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and you pop. I think what you do is you pop maybe the 40% of his in the 529. You put 30% of your daughter's in a 529, and then you maybe pay off some bills with the extra $3,000. Like, that just seems like no harm, no foul. Everybody's happy. It's going to be more than $10,000 by the time they take it out. Seems like everybody wins in this situation here.
It's sort of like a bar tab. You're like, dude, I'll get you back. Like, it'll all work itself out. Like, that's exactly it works itself out.
This one will not work itself out.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's like, if you don't get this $10,000, like these 2
I'm
years
going to
old.
get you $10,000 later.
No,
I'm going to get you the equivalent of $50,000 later because that's not happening.
Think about how much money you're going to be spending on this kid anyway. Like, it's all on you anyway. You pay all the money. So that's why it's just like, it's a wash,
I think the thing is, like, do they he says they do all right financially. Do they need the money? Everybody has debt. Like, we've got a house and, everybody's got certain debts, but like, are you in trouble? If you're not in trouble and you feel like you're just making your monthly payments and you're going to be fine, then like, maybe do you actually need any of this? I think the question is, do you split it between the two kids? That's the bigger question to me. And I would split it between again, maybe you do a 60-40 situation, but the kid's never going to know about it. Never. He's never going to know the exact numbers. So if it's weighing on your conscience, both your kids are going to be good in the long run.
Yeah, the conscious things, like, we have to kind of factor that into all of this, because I was thinking of some things like, okay, wait a minute, if you're in debt, if you get out of that debt, as opposed to paying money towards interest for just awful, stupid debt and money that's not going anywhere, if you can wipe that out and then take that money that you're saving, they can go towards real things. Can you reroute it that way where this $10,000 goes down for a really good cause, and then you're making up, like, again, quality of life over $10,000 is a bit of a stretch here, but are you setting yourself up with more financial freedom and being able to use incoming money in better ways by not having to pay down this other bad debt because you feel like you have to start day one to start funding your college kids thing? I'm going to ask a tax question because I'm fucking back. I'm sorry to those of you that think you're the hero.
I know, of all days.
Right. Oh, I didn't even think of that. You know what's funny is I didn't even know.
You were up early this morning?
All I knew was that it was Snoop Dogg. Because I was like,
like, I'm back.
God, is that funny? That is so funny because I completely forgot. Yeah. All right. So maybe I'll leave that tax rant alone, but
Today, of all day.
to have people think it is because of today. Is there a yearly tax thing, Ceruti, that because you're paying into the college fund that kind of presents its, I think I'm answering this sort of knowing the answer, but you know better than I do, where it makes sense to have this money like be non-taxed year to year? Does that help you with your taxes?
Well, the 529 is just like a college plan. I don't know like the exact like details of it. We just kind of whatever money we get for birthdays and this and that. If we put like a few grand in it at the start to get it going. Like the idea I think is that you could use that sort of tax free, or at least there's not as big of a burden of taxes like 18 years later. So I don't know the exact specifics of the question.
I guess I was just wondering if that becomes non-taxable income that's being contributed towards the college fund each year. I'm not talking about when you're taking it out.
Oh, you're saying like, can you just dump it all in there tax free? I would guess whatever like payment you get from the settlement, you just get. I don't think that. I'm
talking about yours specifically. Like, hey, I make $50,000 a year. These are my expenses. Okay, well, I can't tax you. Again, it all depends on the rate and whatever you fall into here. I guess I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to, and I don't think I want to have an accountant on call. No. I don't think we need it enough. Maybe come
somebody
a couple times a year. I think this emailer is like, this guy seems like a really good person.
Yeah, good guy.
Like, he seems like a good guy who's making it more complicated than it needs to be. I would say if you're in credit card debt and you're paying out, a couple $100 a month in interest on a debt that you can't get down, and you're just fucking blindly paying all of this interest. That is one of the worst possible ways to be spending your money. So delaying the college fund, or not maxing it out. And again, I don't know what you can do every year here on this. I actually think that's the right call, because it's going to send you on a path to spending your money in better ways quicker, as opposed to writing this check for credit card debt that just sucks. And the rate is, what are we talking, 20+%, 21% on some of this stuff, depending on the card that you have. That's just nasty, nasty stuff that you should not want to be involved in. So it doesn't mean that all of a sudden, like, Dad, we can have a porch now, and now all your kids are going to like have better friends. And I'm not being dramatic about this. I just personally despise when I hear of anyone that I'm friends with, that I care about, or whatever. I'm like, what? And granted, I was an absolute moron with my finances for a long time. The major issue was I didn't have any money. That can definitely get in the way.
It's usually a tough one to get around.
Right. Like, what do you think some of your root issues were? Not having any money was number one, and then decision making.
Then having
off of
3
that,
credit cards is number 2.
Right. So, like, look, you want to put $1,000 in each of the accounts to feel like it's even Steven, even though your kid's not going to have most likely weird hair as an adult. Fine. I don't know that your kid at 18 can be pissed at you if the other kid had a better start because of an accident that happened to him, and the fact that everybody's so young here. I think most parents would just pocket all this $10,000. The fact that you want to do something right is commendable, and maybe doing something right is getting your family, getting your household out of some awful, awful, pointless debt. And then if you want to, and I think because of the email, you'll probably hold yourself to the standard, make it up for them later on, because start doing some of the math on how bad the interest payments are going to be if you don't get this $10,000 in credit card debt down. So
yeah,
that's what I would
best
do.
bat at baseball practice. How about that? Now it's even. Just do something nice in another way.
Yeah, right. Like maybe you take them to a vacation that you don't want to go to. Right? I think of the parents that do that. Like, what did you do? Oh, we took him to this thing. It sucked.
Drove 9 hours to Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah.
Yeah. Both you and your wife had zero interest in this destination. I actually don't even understand how parents do that. Like you can't pick something that you would like. That's actually probably a pretty low percentage of parents. Like, how many parents are out there? Both are like, we hate the idea of even going to this place, but we're doing it for the kids. Look, soccer practice is a different category, but just like full on summer vacation.
Yeah, it feels like probably the 6 to 7 year old range, like the Mecca Disney pilgrimage. That's probably, I don't know. Maybe there's some more Disney.
A lot of adults like it.
I know, but
Wargon, he's
I don't know, you got a group of 5, including the 2 adults, and you're just shelling out every single night. And the Mickey's buffet sucked actually, and it's, I don't know. I could see a lot of parents be like, we just they're all the right age. We waited till everyone will remember this trip, and we just have to do it. I think there's a lot of adults like that out there. But you're right. There's way too many Disney adults for how many kids there are still. So I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of adults bring their kids to Disney because they actually want to go to Disney. Perhaps. My dad wasn't one of them. I can tell you that.
Yeah, we never. I tried to go to the Spectrum so I could watch Moses Malone. My dad was like, Philly, fuck that. Like for 4 or 5 years in a row, I was like, can you just take me to the Spectrum so I can see Moses and then Charles, because Moses was traded in 86. And he's like, I'm not driving to Philadelphia for a fucking Sixers game. It's like, all right, but we go to Hartford for UConn games. So it's a lot closer. All right. Good luck with all that. Hit us up in 18 years.
Hope it works.
Yep. Let us know. Okay. All right. Let's get to a guy who is he just cannot stop hooking up.
Whoa.
Forgot to mention the friends with benefits part. Hello, friends. Jim Nance voice. 37 years old, 6'1", 176. Precise measurements here. No basketball comp. I don't watch or play it. Golf comp. Nick Dunlap. Good enough to win it, but I'll also shoot a 44 on the back 9 to miss the cut. But I'll chug a beer with you! Exclamation. Anyways, ... So I signed up on Bumble with every intention to just have ideally multiple strictly physical relationships. It was going well. Lots of matches. I live in Los Angeles. Don't worry. You can say all the cities and names. There's no shortage of beautiful women here.
Excuse me.
This guy's just like, and then my dad who works at, just kidding. All right. So you already know how it works. Actually, I don't know how it works. You don't need to bore you with the matching and small talk details with these women, females. There's 2 women in jeopardy here. Now, I told you guys I want to keep it strictly physical. However, I did fail to mention that minor detail to these ladies. I thought it was on my profile, but it is not.
Ooh, all right.
Are dudes keeping it strictly physical on their profiles? Because that's
No. I think we know that's why it wasn't on his profile, because I think you get less matches when you do that. Come on. I think you know that, man.
I won't like you. Here for the banging. Totally will take the L, hand up, Doug Christie style. Okay, I used to watch some ball. I still can't get over that Doug Christie mic'd up thing with Ellis, where he was telling his own player to make sure he didn't give the ref too hard of a time when he wasn't really even giving him. And he's like, well, we have a standard here. Fascinating stuff. I'll leave it at that. All right, so now I'm splitting time with Amanda and Liz. Man. All right. He didn't want to change the names. Maybe this is the whole point of the email. 2 matches, juggling it all. They both are cracking wise on me, wondering why I can't stay the night or why I can't come over Friday or whatever the day may be. Because if I'm not with Liz, then I'm with Amanda and vice versa. So now it's snowballing on me. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm single, just looking to hang out. I always think of the time a girl tried to extort Jaromir Jagr after she slept with him. She took a selfie with him while he was sleeping and was like, yeah, I'll post it for you. I'm not married. You're of age. Smile. I don't remember that full Jagr details.
Oh, yeah, I do.
It's not that sketchy other than she took a picture of him, right?
Yeah, and he was like, I don't care. Cool.
Check.
All right. Anyway, Jagr style. What are you doing tonight? I'm going out Jagr style. I don't love, quotes, either of them. I've had sex with both. It was awesome. They're great in all aspects.
What a read from you. What a great read from you.
They're great in all aspects, but I have zero interest in dating either of them. I just think about the lonely guys listening to these emails being like, kill this guy. Those feelings of theirs are not as casual. Amanda just made a joke that her lease is coming up in a few months and asked when mine is coming up. All caps. Nope. Not having that convo. The Lions game was about to start. See, this is just like, this guy's just riffing. He's riffing pretty good for later at night email send. I guess I can't just rip the Band-Aid off and tell him how I really feel. Should I? Maybe one more round of hookups and then break it to them. Do I do it at the Red Lion, Silver Lake? Kyle, you ever been there?
Heard of it. Never went.
Ceruti, put down your dad cap and think with your dick and give me some solid advice. That's when I double checked what time it was sent.
All right.
With this one. Attached a pic to perhaps just get a better feel if I'm the asshole or not. Well, there's some aggressive ink, bro. Some aggressive ink. But that's an assumption. If this were sent 10 years ago, I'd go, oh, I'd make all sorts of. Now it doesn't mean anything. Okay. Who wants to go first here? Kyle, you seem ready.
I'll just say, I mean, he's all, what did he say, 37? Is that what he said?
37. I mean, good point.
So,
good starting point.
I was thinking back to when this was me, and this was high school. This was my year off, or this was college. This was my year between college. Just a lot of didn't have the guts.
Portal.
Yeah, didn't have the guts to tell these girls, like, I see where you're going. I see the road you think this is going down, and it's just not. But I don't want to make you feel bad by telling you it's not. So I'll just eventually disappoint you massively, and then I'll move on. And yeah, it sounds like that's what's going to happen to you. And you're asking, am I the asshole in the situation? The answer is going to be yes. It's just a lot easier than to say, hey, listen, with that rent comment that you were making, or with that, lease comment that you're making, like I just don't think that's what I'm looking for. I would have just been like, I don't know. I think I'm month to month. Like, I would have just said the thing that makes this kick the can down the road a little bit while you're not disappointed in me. I don't have to have a hard conversation. It's so much easier to go through life that way. Disappointing, like not showing up for things or just saying, I'm not sure about that plan. Just it's not constructive. It's just easy. It's the easy way. Like you said, you wanted to hook up, but you didn't want to. I don't think you wanted to put that on your Hinge profile because it wouldn't be as easy to get matches and go on dates and have fun right now. So It sounds like you're doing all the stuff that's like having fun right now, and I totally get it. It feels right. It's so easy. But you're a little older than I was when I was doing that. So
That's the thing. You were what, 18,
you might be the
19?
asshole. Yeah.
A little different than 37.
I think LA factors in here a little bit.
All right, add 10 years. Still, I think is a little bit of an issue. I think he knows it sounds like one of these girls at least thinks they're dating, and you don't even remotely think that.
I think she's
So
moving
that
in potentially.
feels like a problem.
She didn't find a lover. She found a roommate.
Yeah.
Think about how much money we could save if just one of us kept our cars. No.
I just got a settlement for $10,000. Put that towards the security deposit.
But I think the age thing does matter here in that, like, yeah, if you're 18, even if you're in your late 20s, it like kind of doesn't matter. But like, you got to think of, I don't know, like you're just stringing these girls along who want probably some sort of relationship. And I assume they're, at least somewhat close to your age, maybe a little bit younger. I don't know. Maybe they're older. Who knows? You're crazy.
I would guess he was younger, just thinking about everything he said.
Yeah, I would guess that too. But still, like, I would. This goes back to the conscious thing from the last email of like, hey, if I take this money, am I going to feel like an asshole? Like, I would feel like a dick if I was just stringing this girl along for a while who was like actually wanting a relationship, and I don't want that. If you're cool with just being an asshole, then keep living your life and kicking the can down the river and just saying, hey, maybe, what Kyle said about, I don't know, I'm going month to month, we'll see, and just kind of stringing them along. I wouldn't love that. I'd feel kind of weird about that at 37. But if you don't, then I think you kind of just, keep thinking with your dick, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Sounds like somebody put down their dad cap there for a couple minutes.
I didn't appreciate that line. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't think you should have.
I totally got what he wanted from you, though. He was just like, dude, just tell me, man. Let's get out of the office. Just tell me what you really think.
Hey, look, the ladies love Ceruti at ESPN. He has no idea some of the scouting reports I would get. So you're not going to shame my guy. And I think it just because he became an adult pretty quickly overnight, going multiple hairdo combos from different European soccer players and checking out UEFA media guys to figure out what he was going to tell his barber, to staying up all night smoking darts and playing with Leeds, and then all of a sudden he's fucking
did play with Leeds,
banging out kids, dogs, mortgages, and a great wife. Like, it happened fast, but it doesn't mean there wasn't a window in there where there'd be a girl on TV being like, is that the guy is that the knighted guy? Like, yeah, works on my show.
Yeah.
Girls like Ceruti. I think Kyle nailed it in the very beginning, is like the age thing. It's like how, there should be a moment, I think, again, we're speaking to the male side because 3 males. We could get into kind of this nasty like gender. Well, if they're doing it to us, then we can do it to them, and that whole deal. And you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but I would think you'd get to a point where at least, all right, I can tell you from my firsthand experience, 20s could not give a shit. Don't care. Don't care if I'm wasting your time. Don't care how you feel about stuff. Don't care. And that was a bit of a carryover where I was like really, really nice. And then I noticed, I was like, the dicks always seem to be doing better than the non-dicks. Like, what's that about? And
it's a tough realization. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, I guess you just be like a little, like, just don't care about anything. And then you'll be better off. And look, I sort of regret feeling like that was the path, because it kind of gets in the way. You sort of stunted the development of relationships because you're still kind of dealing with this younger thing that you've developed. And I don't want to say like in your adolescence, but college and post 20s and those first years, like those first years after college, and everybody's in a city and it's sort of real now, as opposed to fake real being on your own. It's like real, but also depending on your financial independence or having zero financial independence, like impacts a lot of these different decisions. And I know I'm rambling here a bit, but like, I think it's all baked into just how you are going to treat other people in romantic relationships, right? Some of it comes down to like security. Are you insecure? Can you actually be that secure in your 20s to begin with? Because I think there's insecure 20-year-olds, and there's like insecure 40-year-olds where you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So I do think the mature thing to do, and I don't know that it's that a man needs to do it more than a woman needs to do it, but as you get older, some of the things that have happened that haven't worked out because you didn't like the person, because you feel like you owe it to this person because you do care about them that you're like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to be deceitful.
Yeah.
I don't want to lie. I don't want to get in the way of whatever personal goals that you have for your life and building a family and all of this stuff. So if I'm going to be misleading, and I don't know how misleading you were, like they're on Bumble, they met up with you. Sounds like you're awesome. Both these girls like you here. But I think 37 is around the age where you should start to take some accountability of what you could potentially be doing to them by, I don't know if you're misleading them a ton, but there's going to come that moment. And sometimes it comes way too early in a relationship. Sometimes it comes when it's way too late and then people are even more pissed off. But times where it hasn't worked out for me would be a realization of like, I do not want to be wasting your time. I actually do care about you and I want you to reach your goals, and it's going to suck to think about you with somebody else, but I'd rather those things than you have all this massive resentment because you signed up for a partnership where you were not aligned at all. So yeah, I think 37 is about the age. Like, good for you. Like, I kind of get it. And it is tough to just start the courting phase, being like, just so you know, DTF onlys. Okay. Like, that's it. Right. Because you got to be some kind of like Josh Allen type dude to be pulling that kind of stuff off, right? To bring it full circle from the beginning of the podcast. And look, some of those guys, it does work and it does exist. Like, there's this one dude who I met who just was that way about everything, just completely open. He did have a place in a really nice stretch of LA, so it sort of just all baked together and worked for him, where it was just like from the jump, everybody understood he wasn't a long-term bet. And because of that freedom, it kind of worked for him. Good luck figuring that one out. I've never been able to figure it out. But again, to close here, I think the mature thing to do, and if you want to take it upon yourself, that a man is more likely to have to do it. And we can pretend it's all bullshit or whatever. Maybe I'm being a little old in it, a little outdated, but I think it's the responsible thing to not waste people's time. All right. Even if it's going to cost you a roll around in the old shack. Like, clearly you're
He
attractive.
clearly doesn't
enough,
want to
it
lose
works.
that.
Right.
He wants to have every
So
option to do that.
maybe be a bit more forthcoming, but whatever these like little short-term wins for you, they're not even close to adding up for what is like a long-term loss when the partner is completely in the dark about what your long-term intentions are. And I will never think that that's the wrong thing to do, even if you're selfish and it's costing you something in the short term. How do we feel?
Yeah. I mean, his question was, am I the asshole? My answer is leaning yes. Because of your age. Because of the one thing that he didn't say, one thing I'm positive, I don't know what was and wasn't said to these women. The one thing I'm positive he didn't say was like, hey, I just want to kind of keep this casual, because it doesn't feel good to say it. It doesn't feel good to watch her face say it. It doesn't feel good to like work up the energy to say it.
It also doesn't work a ton in general.
Right.
Like, very few guys, to the original point, it can, like, most of you aren't going to get where you want by saying that's all you want.
And the thing he likes probably is when he's around his buddies, be like, dude, Jenna and Mary, they're both like driving me nuts. Like, it's cool to be the guy that's wanted when you like it feels good in my, asshole 22-year-old brain. It felt cool to be like that guy that has this problem.
Yeah, juggling. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it feels
actually
cool. It feels good to tell your buddies about it. Like, it's a real problem you have. It feels cool to be wanted. It's just,
but you're right. It's a bit like being the town tough guy. And if you're not that, then it's like, oh, so-and-so is always juggling all this stuff.
Right.
It's like, yeah, cool. I've caused myself massive headaches and all of these people are going to hate my guts like for years beyond this. But it's so, yeah, it's so cool.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I think that's why when you hear about like older guys juggling stuff, you're like, dude, that's not exhausting.
Right. What time are you going to bed, dude?
Yeah. Well, that's how I think about the cheating thing. It's like who has the time, man? Like who's it seems such like an extra chore.
I have revisited my thoughts on cheating based on far more understanding of the complications of marriage without being married. Is my point.
I get how it
like,
happens, but
right.
Yeah, it's just it's a lot of
To
work.
have that as the game plan, right? Yeah, to have that as the game plan. Yeah. A lot of prep.
I just think I was more naive about it until I had more friends that were just married longer and, having deeper conversations about what was going on specifically with them. I am entirely less judgmental about it. And honestly, the main reason I was super judgmental about it before was it was married guys fucking with my thing. So it wasn't like
Checks
I was like, oh, you're so ultra. No, it's not even a morality thing. It's like, hey, don't fuck with me.
I respect your right to do this.
Yeah, right.
Where's
you're
it
getting
end?
in my
But not
way.
me. Yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
Say hi to your kids for me. All right, that'll do. A little spice there for you at the end.
Awesome.
Good job, Wargon. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Ceruti. And we are back tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. We'll have a fresh episode off the college football national championship, Ohio State, Notre Dame. I can't wait to do tomorrow's show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have David Pollack, who was actually my last guest ever on my ESPN podcast. So another full circle moment. Please check out the YouTube page and subscribe to the podcast. Ryen Russillo, Spotify.